Naira had always dreamed of a life filled with love and happiness. Born into a humble family in a quiet village, she had grown up watching her parents' affectionate bond, and she longed for a similar connection. Her hopes were simple yet profound: someone who would cherish her, respect her, and build a life with her. While she wasn't wealthy, her kind heart and radiant smile made her stand out. One day, while helping her mother at the local market, Naira met Malik. He was different from anyone she had ever known: charismatic, confident, and carrying an air of mystery. His deep voice and kind eyes drew her in, and he seemed to notice her in a way no one else had before. Malik was attentive, offering help without hesitation and engaging her in conversations that made her feel special. Over the next few weeks, Malik continued to visit the market, always finding reasons to talk to Naira. He would bring small gifts, like a flower or a sweet treat, and listen intently to her stories. Naira couldn't help but feel that she had found the man of her dreams. Her friends and family noticed their growing bond and whispered about how lucky she was to have caught Malik's attention. But not everyone was charmed by him. Whispers began to circulate in the village about Malik's past. Some said he had lived in the city for years, only to return abruptly under strange circumstances. Others claimed he had ties to people better left unspoken of. Naira's mother grew concerned, urging her to be cautious, but Naira was too caught up in Malik's kindness and devotion to listen. She believed in the man he was with her, not the rumors. Malik proposed after just a few months, and Naira said yes without hesitation. She was certain she had found her soulmate, someone who would love her unconditionally. But there were small moments, fleeting and easily dismissed, that hinted at another side of him: a stranger's lingering glance at Malik during a festival, his reluctance to talk about certain parts of his life, or the way he would sometimes fall silent when asked about his time in the city. All of it felt insignificant to Naira. She was too wrapped up in the hope of their future together to question the shadows in his past. As their wedding day approached, the excitement in Naira's heart overshadowed any lingering doubts. She believed that love could conquer all, that the man she was marrying was as perfect as he seemed. But life has a way of unraveling truths, and the secrets Malik carried were far darker than she could have imagined. For now, though, Naira was blissfully unaware, stepping into a new chapter of her life with hope and love as her guiding light. The wedding day was a celebration like no other. The air was filled with the scent of freshly picked flowers, and the village seemed to glow under the vibrant colors of the decorations. Friends and family gathered from near and far, their laughter and chatter blending harmoniously with the traditional music that played in the background. Naira looked breathtaking in her red and gold bridal attire, her face radiant with happiness. She couldn't believe this moment was hers, a dream come true. As she walked down the aisle, her heart raced with a mix of excitement and nervousness. Malik stood at the end, waiting for her with a gentle smile. He looked every bit the perfect groom, handsome, confident, and full of love. When their eyes met, Naira felt a wave of reassurance. This was it. She was starting a new chapter with the man who had captured her heart. The ceremony was filled with blessings and heartfelt speeches, each one reinforcing the idea that Naira and Malik were destined to be together. Yet, amid the joyous occasion, there were fleeting moments that unsettled Naira. She noticed how Malik stiffened when a group of unfamiliar men arrived late to the celebration. They exchanged quick glances with Malik before blending into the crowd. She brushed it off, convincing herself that it was just her imagination. As the days turned into weeks, Naira settled into her new life. Still, she chose to focus on the love and kindness he showed her. To Naira, those small moments of doubt couldn't outweigh the happiness she felt in his presence. But beneath the surface of their seemingly perfect life, something was waiting to reveal itself, something that would change everything. It started with a knock on the door late one evening. Naira was in the kitchen, preparing tea, when she heard Malik's voice grow tense. Curious, She peeked out to see a man standing at their doorstep, his clothes dusty from travel. The man's voice was loud, almost accusing, as he addressed Malik by a name Naira had never heard before. "You can't hide forever," the stranger said, his tone heavy with meaning. Malik, visibly shaken, denied knowing the man. "You've made a mistake," he said firmly before shutting the door in his face. When Naira asked who it was, Malik waved it off, saying it was just someone confused and looking for the wrong person. But his expression told another story. His usual calm demeanor was replaced with unease, and he avoided eye contact for the rest of the evening. In the days that followed, more oddities began to surface. Malik would take calls late at night, his voice hushed but urgent. Naira could hear him pacing in the next room, speaking in short, clipped sentences. Whenever she asked who he was talking to, he would dismiss it as work or family matters. Yet, the tension in his voice lingered in the air long after the calls ended. One evening, as Malik was changing his shirt, Naira's eyes fell on a deep, jagged scar running across his back. It looked old, but severe, and she couldn't hide her shock. "What happened to you?" she asked softly, her fingers brushing the edge of the scar. Malik stiffened and quickly pulled his shirt back down. "It's nothing," he said with a forced smile. "An accident from long ago. Don't worry about it." But Naira couldn't help worrying. These small but unsettling moments began to pile up, leaving her with a growing sense of doubt. Malik was still the loving husband she had married, but there was a side of him she couldn't reach, a part of his life he was keeping hidden. She found herself torn between two impulses, confronting him about the secrets she could no longer ignore, or trusting him enough to let him open up in his own time. The warmth of their early days was still there, but now it was accompanied by a shadow that Naira couldn't shake. She wondered if she was imagining things, or if the man she loved was someone she didn't truly know at all. The marketplace was bustling as usual, with vendors shouting prices and children weaving through the crowds. Naira walked alongside Malik, her hand nestled in his, enjoying the simplicity of the moment. But that peace shattered in an instant. "Naira, is that your husband?" A man's voice boomed from across the crowd. Startled, Naira turned to see an older man, rugged and scarred, pointing directly at Malik. "Amir, it's been a while," the man sneered, his voice dripping with venom. Naira froze. "Amir," she whispered, glancing at Malik, who had gone pale. He gripped her hand tightly, but the warmth was gone, replaced by tension. "You've got the wrong person," Malik said calmly, his voice steady, but his eyes betraying his unease. The man laughed, loud and bitter. "You think you can just walk away, change your name, and it all disappears. You left a mess behind, Amir, and it's time to clean it up." The crowd began to gather, murmurs rippling through the market. Naira felt the weight of their stares as her mind raced. Who was this man? Why was he calling Malik by another name? And why did Malik look like a cornered animal? "Let's go," Malik muttered, pulling Naira away. She followed, her heart pounding, but once they were out of sight, she yanked her hand free. "Who is he?" she demanded, her voice trembling. "And why did he call you Amir?" Malik ran a hand through his hair, his shoulders slumping. "It's not what you think," he began, but Naira shook her head. "Then tell me. I deserve to know the truth." That night, Malik finally broke his silence. He sat across from her, his gaze heavy with guilt. "My real name is Amir," he admitted. "Before I met you, I wasn't the man you know now. I was part of a gang in the city. Hakeem was the leader, a ruthless man who controlled everything and everyone. My job was to collect debts for him." Naira's breath hitched. "Debts? What does that mean?" Malik hesitated, his hands trembling. "It means I hurt people, Naira. People who couldn't pay. I didn't have a choice back then. I was young, desperate. Hakeem took advantage of that." Tears welled up in Naira's eyes as Malik continued. "One day, I couldn't do it anymore. I saw what I was becoming and it terrified me. So I left. I changed my name, came here, and tried to start over. Then I met you, and for the first time, I felt like I could be someone better, someone good. He reached for her hand, but she pulled away, the weight of his confession pressing down on her chest. "Why didn't you tell me?" she whispered. "I wanted to protect you," he said, his voice cracking. "I thought I could leave that life behind, but I was wrong. They're coming for me, Naira. And now, they know about you too." The air between them was thick with fear and unspoken questions. Naira's world felt like it was crumbling. The man she thought she knew now a stranger. But even amidst the shock and betrayal, one thing was clear. This was far from over. The threats began subtly at first. A black envelope slipped under their door, containing nothing but a single chilling sentence. "You can't outrun your past." Malik tried to brush it off, claiming it was just an empty attempt to scare him, but the tension in his jaw told Naira otherwise. Then, things escalated. One morning, Naira stepped out to find their car tires slashed and a note taped to the windshield. "Return to us, or she pays the price." Her heart raced as she rushed inside to show Malik. His face darkened, and for the first time, Naira saw genuine fear in his eyes. That evening, the unthinkable happened. As they returned from the market, a figure emerged from the shadows, tall, imposing and exuding menace. Malik instinctively pushed Naira behind him. "Hakim," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Hakim smiled, but it was cold and predatory. "Amir," he said, savoring the name. "You thought you could just walk away? Leave me to clean up your messes?" His gaze shifted to Naira, who clung to Malik's arm. "And you thought a new life would erase what you owe me?" "Leave her out of this," Malik said firmly, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. Hakim chuckled, taking a step closer. "Oh, I intend to. As long as you do one last job for me. Simple, really. One night, and all of this goes away." He gestured vaguely around them, as if to encompass the entire world of danger he represented. "But if you refuse..." He let the threat hang in the air, his gaze lingering on Naira before disappearing into the night. Malik's paranoia spiraled after that. He barely slept, constantly checking the locks and looking over his shoulder. He became distant, retreating into himself, leaving Naira to grapple with the weight of their reality alone. The man she had fallen in love with seemed to be slipping away, consumed by fear and guilt. Naira found herself caught in a suffocating dilemma. Could she stay by Malik's side, knowing the danger that loomed over them both? Or should she leave, cutting ties to protect herself from the storm brewing on their doorstep? Every option felt like a betrayal. Of Malik, of herself, and of the love they had once shared. Naira couldn't ignore the feeling anymore. The growing suspicion that Malik wasn't telling her everything. The threats, his restless nights, and the name Amir whispered in shadows. It all pointed to secrets buried deep in his past. One night, while Malik was out, she decided to search for answers. She started in their bedroom, her hands trembling as she sifted through drawers and shelves. At first, she found nothing unusual, just everyday items and neatly folded clothes. But as she reached the bottom of his closet, her fingers brushed against something solid. Pulling it out, she discovered an old locked box. Her heart raced as she pried it open using a hairpin. Inside, she found a collection of items that painted a chilling picture. There were photos of Malik, or rather, Amir, with a group of men, all wearing the same smug, dangerous expressions. One of them was unmistakably Hakim. The dates on the back of the photos showed they were taken years ago, but the intensity in their eyes felt timeless. Beneath the photos, she found documents, financial records, names, and amounts. It didn't take long for her to realize they were lists of debts Malik had collected for Hakeem's gang. Her stomach turned as she imagined what those numbers meant for the people involved. Then she found the letters. One, in particular, made her blood run cold. It was a police report with Malik's name listed as a suspect in a violent assault. The details were vague, but the word escaped custody leaped off the page. When Malik returned home, Naira was waiting, the box open on the table. He froze when he saw it, his face a mixture of guilt and resignation. "I can explain," he began, but Naira cut him off. "How could you keep this from me?" she demanded, her voice breaking. "You lied to me, Malik, about everything." He sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. "I didn't lie about loving you," he said softly. "Everything else, yes, but not that." Malik confessed it all, his role in Hakeem's gang, the debts, the violence, and the crime that forced him to run. "I regret every moment of that life," he said, his voice trembling. "I've been trying to make up for it ever since, but it keeps pulling me back." Naira stared at him, her mind a whirlwind of emotions, betrayal, anger, sadness, but most of all, a deep, aching question. Could she ever trust him again? Malik knew there was no escaping it anymore. Hakeem had made it clear this wouldn't end unless he faced him head-on. That night, he told Naira he had to go out for a few hours, his tone distant but determined. She didn't press him, though her instincts told her something was terribly wrong. As soon as he left, she made up her mind to follow him. Grabbing a scarf to cover her face, she slipped into the night, keeping a safe distance behind Malik as he made his way to a deserted warehouse on the outskirts of town. The shadows of the dimly lit buildings stretched across the ground like ominous fingers, and Naira's heart pounded with every step. Inside, Hakeem waited, flanked by two of his men. His presence was as commanding as ever, exuding danger and authority. Malik stepped forward, keeping his posture firm despite the obvious disadvantage. "I'm here," he said, his voice steady. "Let's end this." Hakeem smirked, clapping his hands slowly. "Look who finally grew a spine. But you don't get to call the shots, Amir. You lost that right the day you walked away." He gestured to his men, who stepped closer, their faces set in grim determination. "I'm not rejoining your gang," Malik said firmly. "I left that life behind for a reason. This ends tonight, Hakeem. Leave Naira and me alone, and I'll give you whatever you want." "What I want?" Hakeem laughed, the sound echoing through the empty warehouse. "What I want is justice for the betrayal you handed me. You think you can walk away from me without consequences. You owe me more than just loyalty. You owe me your life." Naira, watching from the shadows, felt a chill run down her spine. She could see the fury in Hakeem's eyes, the kind that wouldn't stop until blood was spilled. Just as Hakeem signaled to his men to attack, she stepped out, her voice trembling, but loud enough to stop them in their tracks. "Leave him alone," she shouted, drawing everyone's attention. Malik's eyes widened in shock. "Naira, no!" he exclaimed, but she was already standing between him and Hakeem. Hakeem raised an eyebrow, intrigued by her sudden bravery. "And who is this?" he asked mockingly. "The wife who thinks she can save her husband from his sins? He's not the man he used to be," Naira said, her voice stronger now. "Whatever debt he owes you, it's not worth destroying more lives." Hakeem chuckled darkly. "You think I care about lives? This is about respect, about teaching a lesson." In the chaos that followed, Naira grabbed a nearby pipe and swung it at one of Hakeem's men as they advanced on Malik. The distraction gave Malik a chance to fight back, and together they managed to fend off the attackers. Hakeem, enraged but momentarily outnumbered, retreated with a parting threat. "This isn't over," he growled before disappearing into the night. Malik turned to Naira, his face a mixture of gratitude and fear. "You shouldn't have come," he said, pulling her into an embrace. but Naira held him tightly, knowing they had only just survived the first battle in a much larger war. Malik knew there was only one way to ensure Naira's safety. As they heard Hakim's men regrouping outside the warehouse, he turned to her, his eyes filled with both love and desperation. "You need to leave now," he said firmly. Naira shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I'm not leaving you, Malik. We can face this together." He cupped her face in his hands, his voice soft but resolute. "You're the reason I fought to change my life. If you stay, they'll destroy everything we've built. Please, Naira, go and get help. I'll hold them off." Before she could argue further, Malik opened a hidden side door and pushed her through it, whispering, "I love you." The door slammed shut, leaving Naira outside in the cold night, her heart breaking with every step she took towards safety. Inside, Malik braced himself as Hakim's men stormed in. They surrounded him, weapons drawn, but he fought with a ferocity that surprised even them. Every punch, every move was fueled by his love for Naira and his determination to protect her at all costs. Naira, meanwhile, ran as fast as she could to the nearest police station. Her breath came in gasps as she explained everything to the officers, who quickly dispatched a team to the warehouse. She prayed with every fibre of her being that Malik would still be alive when they arrived. Back at the warehouse, Malik was outnumbered and injured, but he refused to give up. When Hakim finally entered, he smirked at Malik, bloodied and barely standing. "You should have stayed loyal, Amir," Hakim sneered. "Now you'll lose everything." But before Hakim could land the final blow, sirens wailed in the distance. Police cars surrounded the warehouse, their lights flashing like beacons of hope. Naira burst through the barricade, shouting Malik's name as officers stormed the building. Hakim and his men were arrested, their weapons confiscated, and their operation dismantled. Naira found Malik lying on the ground, barely conscious but alive. She knelt beside him, tears streaming down her face as she cradled his head. "I told you to leave," he whispered, his voice weak but full of love. "And I told you I wouldn't," she replied, her voice breaking. As the paramedics arrived, Naira held Malik's hand tightly, knowing their lives would never be the same. Malik's past was now fully exposed to the world, but together they had won the fight for their future. Malik sat in the courtroom, the weight of his past hanging over him like an unshakable burden. The judge read the charges, his voice firm but not without a hint of pity for the man who had once been part of something far darker than he could ever imagine. The room was filled with whispers, some sympathetic, others judgmental. Naira sat in the back, her heart aching as she watched Malik, the man she loved, facing the consequences of a life he had desperately tried to escape. The courtroom was silent when the judge pronounced Malik's sentence, a mix of time served and probation. It was clear that Malik's past could not be erased, but it also became apparent that he had been given a chance for redemption, a chance to rebuild. Naira could see the exhaustion and guilt etched into Malik's features, but there was also something else in his eyes: determination. After the hearing, Malik was led away, but Naira followed him, never once looking back. She had stood by him through the worst of it, and she wasn't about to abandon him now. As she reached him, their eyes met, and without a word, he took her hand. "I will make things right, Naira," Malik whispered, his voice filled with conviction. "I'll earn back your trust, even if it takes my whole life." Naira's heart swelled with a mixture of love and sorrow. She knew the road ahead would be far from easy, that there would be days when the weight of his past would threaten to pull them apart. But she also knew that she wasn't walking this path alone. Malik had shown her his brokenness, and she had seen the man beneath the mistakes. As they walked together, leaving the courtroom behind, Naira thought of all they had endured, the lies, the danger, the heartbreak, and of how, through it all, they had chosen each other. They had chosen love, even when it seemed impossible. "I believe in you, Malik," she said softly, "and I believe in us." Malik looked at her, his eyes filled with gratitude and hope. "We'll make it through," he promised. "Together." And with that, they stepped into a new chapter of their lives, one where the past was not forgotten, but no longer defined them. The shadows of the past lingered, but the light of their love guided them forward,